What's going on, everybody? This is Jimmy, and this is episode 202 of the Horrific Podcast, man. And we are back to our normal schedule where you will have a horrific podcast, hopefully every week, going into the holiday season, accompanied by one of our other branded shows, at least one other branded show. We'll get into that later on as to what's coming on Thursday. But today we have a very cool guest. It was a lot of fun to talk to Mr. Ben Eads, whose novella is coming from Crystal Lake Publishing. It's called Hallow Heart, and it is coming out here at the end of November. Can't wait to dig into it. Sounds very cool. He has created his own world, and if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that we've been doing that kind of a thing with door to door or killers, and when you can create your own world and your own characters. It's very exciting for the medium of film, and I would imagine it's very exciting for the medium of print. It's definitely exciting to read as a lover of books. So, and Ben definitely seems like he's pumped, and he should be pumped about the book that is coming out here very soon. So, haunt season in the rearview mirror. A whole lot of nerd stuff has been happening, and that's why there'll be a Nerdageddon show on Thursday. Horror, though, is kind of slowing down, but kind of still coming out with some stuff, man. We have a meetup this Friday night at the State Theater. I didn't know if we were going to have any more this year, but we're going to have a few more, actually. We're going to have Evil Dead 2 this Friday night. That'll be a cool screening. Then December 6th or 7th, we're going to have In Fabric, which is a new one from A24, which looks creepy. Then we're going to have Black Christmas. That'll be back at Regal Theaters. So 3 more chances to meet up with us this holiday season. Also, got to mention Higby Horror Haunt is doing their Higby Holiday Haunt. I'm going to be the Ghost of Christmas Present, I believe, on Friday the 13th. I think the haunt is actually running 2 nights. Don't know if I'll be able to make both, but I will at least be there Friday the 13th. So, good stuff, man, good stuff. The other thing that is exciting about this time of year is that we start to, narrow it down for our Golden Skull shows, and we'll start to announce some of our Horrific Hall of Fame members. So be on the lookout for that. Those are 2 shows that I love doing at the beginning of the year, and 2020 looks to be a big one because the scope of the Horrific Network is going to change drastically midway through next year. I won't say anything more than that. And it's not like Horrific Network, but it's more of me personally. Gonna go through some changes, career changes, and I'll be curious to see what happens on the other end of everything. Nothing bad, and I'm sure Horrific Network will survive. It's just a matter of how and what it's going to look like at the end. So, Golden Skull and Horrific Hall of Fame this January, it's going to be a big one. The one bit of news that I found that got me pretty excited, is that both Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are talking about Conjuring 3. And the Conjuring universe really is kind of like the New England Patriots of horror, mainstream horror especially, where any film that touches that world is better because they have touched that world. A key example would be La Llorona last January. That film is a scary film regardless, but I'm not gonna lie, it's that much cooler because it does exist in the Conjuring universe and what it could potentially mean for future films down the road. Annabelle Comes Home, I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I will say the ferryman scared me. That was a creepy ass character. So stuff like that, where The Conjuring 2, still one of the scariest films of all time that I have seen. Thought it was way scarier than the first one. It freaked me out, man. So I'm excited that both of these guys, both of these actors, Patrick and Vera, had something to say. Vera said, "It will be big." So for me, visiting these characters, it's like practicing your scales and doing a few pre-goes before having to dive deep into the next one, because the next one is going to be massive. So she was talking more about her cameo in Annabelle Comes Home, knowing that Conjuring 3 is going to be huge. And Patrick Wilson had said, "I knew going into it that James had a real strong hand in the story and the script, and I talked to him a lot about it. Then once I met the director, Michael Chaves, his energy, his skill set, and his passion for it was really infectious. I knew it was going to take, that he was going to take the reins, both with great respect, but still as its own passion. The process was fantastic, and it's a much different feel. It's still the same bones. It's still very much Ed and Lorraine. Again, we are pushing our characters to places they haven't gone, but in the film there will be a really nice addition because it's definitely a different beast. Pun intended. It was really exciting, and it's really, really exciting." So there you go. It looks like they're going to be battling a beast, which, religious incognation would say the beast is the devil. So how much closer to the devil are they going to get? I'm excited to find out, man. So with that, let's get into our guest, Ben Eads, talking about his book coming from Crystal Lake Publishing, Hallow Heart. I'm excited for you guys to take a listen to this interview. All right, everybody, coming up now on the podcast, we have his upcoming novella, Hallow Heart, is about to be released from our friends over at Crystal Lake Publishing. Mr. Ben Eads, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Jimmy. Thank you so much for having me on. How are you doing?
Doing great, man. Doing great. I saw on Crystal Lake not too long ago they revealed the cover for Hallow Heart, and it is nightmarish. You got to be pretty stoked about how that thing's looking.
Oh man, I mean, I knew when we got this in motion and it was accepted. Pretty much every book Ben Baldwin does. I'm a big fan of his work, and when he's like, "All right, I'm gonna start working on it," I was like, "Okay." It's like I was like a kid on Christmas, the night before Christmas. I'm like, "Oh, I can't wait to see it,"
Yeah.
And when I saw it, I was like, "Man, that is amazing art." And it's actually, thanks to him, after the pre-order went up, a lot of people just on the cover alone were like, "Okay, I'm buying it." And I'm like, "Ben, thank you so much."
Yeah, I mean, this thing, looking at it from a perspective, this, if you haven't seen it yet, it almost looks the face on this heart, and then the chambers of it are kind of like growing into branches and trunks of trees, but then you have barbed wire and this grimace. It almost looks Cenobite-ish, like Hellraiser-ish, and then you have like a night sky towards the bottom there. What is this thing? It's nice.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely. People have commented on it and said, yeah.
I was just reading the caption at the top of your cover. You mentioned Clive Barker. Now that I said Cenobite, that quote there, and then it's being compared to Barker, and then Chuck Palahniuk, who's one of my all-time favorites. That's a hell of a compliment there on the cover of the book. But man, what influenced you, or what kind of inspired you to tell this story?
Actually, it came with a nightmare. I'm one of those people that never remembers their dreams or nightmares. Like, I can remember my entire life, maybe 5. And I had this one nightmare, and I remember being in a trailer, and there were other people around me, and everyone was very anxious. And I knew, like, in that weird, nightmare dreamland where you have this memory of this person that you're not. And I had these memories of, we're moving from trailer to trailer, looking for food, supplies, ammunition for the guns. It's coming back. It's coming for us. We can't leave the neighborhood. The neighborhood's on lockdown, and I didn't know exactly, because everyone, including me, was scared to death, and I was feeling this intense anxiety and suspense, and I knew that, the human race was almost gone, and something bad was going to happen. And I walked toward the front door, and the front door opened, and this man stepped in, and he looked like this guy who was trading on Wall Street back in the 20s, bowler hat, mutton chops, and then this really thick, really old British accent. He said, "I'm the architect." And he smiled, and his eyes had double pupils, and his eyes started rolling in its sockets. And so I woke up, and I remember feeling those feelings, the anxiety, the suspense, and it just wouldn't let go of me. And so literally within 15 minutes, I banged out the prologue. After I woke up, I wrote it, and there it was. So,
man, that's a hell of a pitch. That so what? It sounds like he is our antagonist in this story. What did you kind of model out him after? Obviously, you have this nightmare, vivid dream. Who knows? Maybe a future life or some kind of past life in another parallel dimension or whatever. But he's there. But now you kind of have to, you got to give him depth for a novel. What were you like? Okay, this is how this guy is, going off of seeing him in your dream.
I'm kind of a pantser and a plotter. I mean, everybody is. I love it when people on Facebook go, "Oh yes, I plot, pantsers. Oh, I feel so bad for them." And then a week will pass, and they'll post something and say, "Wow, the story started writing itself." So, everyone is a pantser and a plotter, and to some degree, a little bit more here, a little bit more there, what have you. But I knew in the prologue, I really kind of had this idea of, this Twilight Zone-esque, neighborhood's on lockdown, nobody can leave the neighborhood, and I knew that he was the reason for it. This person who likes to refer to himself as the architect, and you're like with any character. I mean, I spend a lot of time, because I write multi-level fiction. So I spend a lot of time meditating on my characters, before I start writing. And with, the architect being the main antagonist, that's no exception. And I really had to, get into his head and figure out, what exactly is going on here, what's this guy's plan. And I guess the elevator pitch sums it up, and that is: an aberration known as the Architect, has finished his masterpiece, a god which slumbers beneath the hollow, determined to change the world into its own image. With the neighborhood on lockdown and the residents turned into shambling horrors, Harold and his former lover Mary begin their harrowing journey into the world within the hollow. So, like every character, with him, I wanted, I wanted something that's unique. I strive for that. I'm a big fan of Kelly Link, Joe Hill, Karen Russell. These are people that are really just coming up with their own stuff, and I like to defy genre conventions.
Yeah.
So, I really wanted to make the Architect and the other characters as well as unique as possible. The plot as well as unique as possible. And the funny thing about any really good antagonist, because villains, were obsolete when H.G. Wells was writing, and even before then, the Architect, when he appraises humanity, his appraisal is correct. His solution is, not a good one. And
right.
This is something, that I found as a theme in the novella, was this damning thread in the fabric of humanity that goes all the way back to when we were living in the caves. And that is, divide and conquer. Mm-hmm. Are we going to be afraid and be divided? Or are we going to, throw our differences away and get over, our own personal trials, our own demons that we have, like my main characters. They have a lot of stuff that they need to work through in their lives, and they can only meet the main antagonist until they do that. But it was kind of like a theme I recognized at the end, and I drafted it down, multiple times, but once just to make sure that, I wasn't, copying any other agenda, if you will. But yeah, the Architect, unlike us, he's been around for a long time. And we have, short-term memories because of, we're not immortal. We don't, live on forever. And
right.
He's been around, a little while. So he definitely has the intellectual advantage. And, he's seen enough of the horrors of war. He was there for the Civil War. That's why he came over here from Britain to help the Union. Mm-hmm. And, it's just time has rotted him. It's like, in a way, like I said, his assessment is correct, of, what is it that really makes us, flawed? What's holding us back? What's that Jungian archetype of the shadow that still casts a pall on us today? And he's really good at manipulating that. He's really good at finding that in people and manipulating that to where, they can make deals, and that, allows us to continue this whole story. And we'll see if Harold and Mary have what it takes to, enter the world that is within the hollow and see what's up there.
It's interesting the way that you describe the Architect, because the best. It's almost like he's cinematic in the sense where he believes what he is doing is for the greater good, and you mentioned him, time rotting him or rotting his soul, consciousness, what have you, and it sounds an awful lot like a pop culture reference to steal. It's like the Thanos mentality, where he is willing to do what it takes because he doesn't see another solution other than his solution. And if you get in the way, you better watch out, type of a thing. And you hit it on the head, man, where he, without a good antagonist, you don't have a strong protagonist. I'm getting ready to graduate film school. That's 101 right there. Without Michael Myers, there is no Laurie. Without Freddy, there is no Nancy. They have to coincide.
Yeah, and what's really, and I don't want to, spoil too much, but what's interesting is what sets him apart from Thanos is that he has multiple things going on. And when you start reading this happens, so then he has to change his plans.
Oh, okay.
So it really is. It starts at 100 miles an hour. That's what the reviewers and the beta readers and the good people that were kind enough to blurb it: Gene O'Neill, Greg Gaffoon, Keelan Patrick Burke, Fran Friel, Mercedes Yardley, all kind of picked up on. But like you said too, you also have to have an equally powerful protagonist. So in a way, the architect was really fun because he's insane. Whereas my main character, Harold Stowe, he's sane, so he's no walk in the park. But as soon as I, saw him in my mind's eye and I started meditating on him, I was like, wow, this guy. And I just, I knew his background, I knew his father, his mother, everything about him. And, it was very important to get everything right in place to where everything in this hermetically sealed neighborhood, my main character and, my other main character, Mary, are cogs that fit perfectly within this clock. And without Harold doing what Harold's doing and without him overcoming this issue that he has, that changes things. So the plot just keeps going and rolling to where, in a way, people are like, it's kind of like Fight Club. So in a way, it's kind of psychological horror, but it's mainly supernatural horror with that added to it. So I try to throw everything and the kitchen sink on, everything I do. And I can't help it. It just happens that way. I remember when we were in final edits at Crystal Lake Publishing, and the editor's like, this could be a novel. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but this is the way I write, and I'm not turning it into a novel, Yeah, she was just being kind in what she was saying. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely got a lot packed into it, and hopefully, the tension and suspense doesn't let up. So I'll let the readers decide that,
Yeah. Was it therapeutic writing the antagonist like that? Because I know doing film and making some stuff. If people who know me personally, if I'm not working, if I'm not in town doing some kind of project, my wife and I we're probably at Disneyland at this point in our lives, and so when I make some film and it's got some guy who's just sick, or if I'm acting and I'm doing a project where I'm just mentally just gone on screen, to flip that switch and be that, there's a sense of it that is therapeutic. Or is it the same with writing?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I remember my mother, when I was 6 years old, I was writing a story. It was right after I learned, how to read and write. And my mom asked me, what are you doing? And I said, I'm writing something. I don't know. I'm telling a story. I think I said, I'm telling a story. Mm-hmm. And she goes, when you were 3 years old, you were doing that. I said, what? And she said, yeah, you would, pull out your crayons and you wouldn't draw anything. You would, even though you didn't know letters or anything, it looked like Egyptian hieroglyphs. Mm-hmm. And when you were done, you handed it to me. And, I tried moving the pages around and you were unhappy about that. So I guess at the age of 3, I was still trying to write. But yeah, I've been writing for as long as I've been alive. I think it's a compulsion. I think King was right in his book on writing that we're all radio broadcasters and we get messages. Who knows where they come from? Alan Moore, is really into the whole, you have to be a magician and you have to know black magic to do this, and nah, I don't buy any of that. But yeah, it's like when I'm writing, I mean, it just hits me. I mean, and if I'm not writing, then I get a little wonky and things, don't go so well, and when I'm writing, it's like my buddies at surf, they say, well, that sounds a lot like when you find your wave and you're writing it, you're in the moment. The world could blow up. It doesn't matter. You wouldn't notice, because you're in the moment.
Right.
And that's what I get from writing is not so much as therapeutic, which I think it is, but more of a the whole, like a truck could drive through a nitroglycerin plant right behind me and explode, and I wouldn't know. I would just be writing. There's sometimes I'll look at the clock before I start writing, and then when I'm done writing, 4 hours have passed, and it felt like 10 minutes. So I really love it, man, and it's just a compulsion. But after I finish a project, I got to take a month off. I do. I really do. And that helps because promotions, marketing, all that has to come into the fore, and that's where, all of your creative juice is going to be anyway for, the next month or two. So I also enjoy the time off to let the brain reset. And I'm always looking to grow as a writer and, always taking workshops and, being mentored by others. And so, yeah, I mean, with time, you kind of outgrow, what made you lame, what was lame about the latest work that you published, what was wrong with it. I try to even that out, and come back, with another story, that is better. And, like with Cracked Sky, that was my first horror novella. I published a bunch of short fiction before that. Shroud Magazine, Chizine, places like that, Seventh Star Press, even Crystal Lake Publishing accepted 2 of my short stories. So, and that kind of led to, me getting to know Joe very, very, very well. But yeah, I do like the time off after I finished a really big project, you know what I'm saying? Because you got to give, at least for me, you got to know who you are. You got to know your limitations. You got to know, like Joe Hill, I'm a slow writer. I'm really slow. And when I heard Joe Hill say that, I'm like, great, I don't feel alone anymore,
Yeah.
Because I've got friends that are like, yep, finish this novella in a week, and here's another one, and another one, and another one. And I'm like, damn, I can only do one a year, or a year and a half at most, at best,
Yeah.
But I think that has a lot to do with, again, just it's hard coming up with unique, stuff that people never read before. And for me, my biggest influences, other than the literary ones, which I love, just as equally, are people, like Arthur Macken, Lovecraft, Clive Barker, Neil Gaiman, Kelly Link, Karen Russell. They'll just take your imagination and just stretch it further than you thought it could ever go. And that's what I, try to do with every piece of fiction that I write. And, once the stars align and the premise is unique and, I'm not copying anybody, I don't write for the market, I'm not a sellout, I don't write trends, I don't do that kind of stuff. I like creating my own worlds and, my own ever afters, and, I think the reader deserves it, but if I could, put a unique twist on a zombie tale, I would, but good luck with that.
Yeah.
So,
no, it's refreshing to hear, because it is that mentality that you have, that is a true, I think, artist mentality. And I know there are people out there, no matter what the medium is, that have that mentality. And then, it's the adage, money talks. And to say, to use the term sold out, I don't know how necessarily fair that is, depending, because everybody's situation is different. And when you have someone who's made, this really rad independent horror film, and 5 years down the line they're remaking Poltergeist or whatever, and
for the 10th time, yeah.
Right. And it's kind of like, he's not a sellout. He kind of sold out on that project, but maybe now you never know what it's going to lead to. Maybe now he gets to make his own original idea. Any kind of business where art is the medium it's a tough game to play. And
yeah, that's kind of why, like I said, if I could do it, if I could put a unique twist on vampires, like Poppy Zebright and Anne Rice did, because before them, they were just creatures.
Right.
They didn't have human emotions or anything of that nature. And they kind of pushed that trope forward. The same goes for, Romero and then, Mayberry. And they were able to push it forward. So if I can come up with a unique idea, then I'd be more than happy to throw my hat in the ring. But the distinction is, I'm not going to sit down and go, oh, that's hot. Let me write about it.
Right. And that's...
there's a big difference there. And that's, just to quantify, my explanation, that's what it is, So for me, to sit down and go, okay, I'm poor, I'm working 2 part-time jobs, man, people love zombie stuff, let me do that. To me, I wouldn't be able to live with myself, so, but if I had a unique twist, and it wasn't for the money, then I'd do it.
Right. No, I'm right there with you as far as that goes. I think that mentality with you writing a story like Hollow Heart is why Crystal Lake is so popular. Is you have these stories, just like in film, that are so unique that people will read it and they'll talk about it, and then somebody else will read it, and it kind of snowballs. I'm knocking on wood for you, but that,
I was gonna say, please knock on wood for me.
But the mentality that you have, that is totally the right mentality. You're doing it for the right reason, with the hope to entertain, not to make money, and that's where I think the best results come from. Yeah.
I mean, thank you for the kind words, and that's the thing. It's like, I remember getting hit up by an editor for a zombie anthology, and I literally took 2 weeks, and I just racked my brain, and I'm like, nope, that's been done. Shit. Okay. Oh, Romero did that. Oh, never mind. Okay. Well, that's been done. Shit. Okay. Well, environmental. Oh, yeah, it's been done for that too. And I just was at the end of my rope, and I was like, okay, well, how about this take on, not the living dead, but something worse than that? You're alive, but you're just, And I ran the idea by the editor, and he goes, nope, it's got to be The Walking Dead. It's got to be, zombies. And I said, okay, well, sorry, man. I just can't do it. I hope you're not offended. He's like, no, I'm not offended at all. Thanks for trying.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, maybe a day will come where I can find something and put a unique twist on it. But in the meantime, yeah, I'm just having way too much fun doing my own thing. Like I'm already thinking about and plotting and getting into these characters' heads for my first novel. And I'm working on that right now in my head. And again, it's definitely something that's weird and different, And a lot of people say, oh, there's only 7 stories or 24 stories you can tell, and they all resolve back to the same premise.
Yeah.
And they teach this in school. And so I think it was back in 2009, my girlfriend and I at the time, we got back from the horror convention Context 22, and I think it was Apex Books that were just selling a whole bunch of books just for like $1. And one of them was an anthology called Cthulhu 2000 AD. I think it came out in the year 2000, and it had all these writers playing in Lovecraft's backyard with Cthulhu. And my girlfriend at the time read it before I did, and she goes, yes, it's pretty good, but there's this one story in here I want you to read. It's really good. And I started reading it, and the professor for English at Miskatonic University, he said and I forget the number, he goes, there's only 7, or 24 stories that you can tell. They all resolve back to the same. No matter what you do, pick the book, they all resolve back to that. And the main character, the student, raises his hand, and the professor says, yes. And he's like, well, do I have your permission to go to Miskatonic's library and check out the Necronomicon? And the professor says, well, why? The student says to look for the 25th. So right there, boom, you just created a whole new, yeah. So I've heard that rule before, and rules are meant to be broken. So if you can just put your elbow grease and imagination into it, I'm sure in regard to strife, struggle, and people having to overcome their inner flaws is everywhere, in art, fiction, paintings, film, but in regard to, what's happening and what they're going to have to go through, I try my best to, be unique, because, you're creative and you'll have a lot of ideas throughout the day, and you'll go, nope, nah, that just doesn't get my goat. Not feeling that one, not feeling that one. And then you'll get one that's gold, and you'll go, okay, that's the one.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how all my stuff comes about, whether it's short fiction or long fiction. Everything I've written, that's how it's come about,
That's interesting. You and I are very much the same, where I have ideas, too, going through my head, and it's like, well, this would be awesome. This could be a cool story. And then it kind of whittles down to, okay, well, I don't have $100 million, so that one's gone for now. But with this, you talked about being more of a kind of a pace yourself type of a writer, where it may take you a while to grind it out. But when you wake up from this nightmare for Hallow Heart, you write out your prologue almost immediately. How long did this take you to complete?
A year.
It was a year, okay.
Yeah, it was a year. It was before final edits, about 20 drafts.
Okay.
And I've got some of the best beta readers out there, and they're also Crystal Lake authors, and I just don't want 100 or 500 writers hitting them up, so I won't name their names, going, hey, can you beta read my stuff for free?
Yeah.
But they're Crystal Lake authors, and some of them have even transcended that. So, again, I put it through its paces, so, at least 3 months of that was getting, feedback from beta readers, and then redrafting it and drafting it again and again and again and again and again. And then, of course, when you think it's ready to go and you submit it, and I forget how many novellas were submitted. It was in the hundreds. I think it was over 200 or 300 that Crystal Lake received. And I was like, oh, please accept this. So when I got, accepted and stuff, I was over the moon. So when we got into final edits, I think it was like 4 more drafts, only because I was a perfectionist. I'm like, it's been a while. Let me make this better.
Yeah.
And, God bless, Monique for putting up with me over at Crystal Lake and indulging me and going, yeah, I fixed that stuff, but I also did some other stuff while I was there. And I'm happy to know that I'm not the only writer that does that, so,
That,
yeah.
How much of that, when you are revising the manuscript, like when you're getting feedback from other authors and stuff, if they're giving you, let's say the novella is 150 pages, and they're like, okay, 1 through 45 I really liked, but 50 through 75, if it was me, I would change this and this. Are you the type that no matter what, you're still going to go back to page 1 and kind of like look at the entire thing regardless of the notes?
I think it's both. The people that I have beta reading for me, they're really, really good. Mm-hmm. And, thankfully, knock on wood, I'm sure it'll happen to me at some point. I haven't had those notes come back to me. For me, it's always, sense of place. We need to feel that a bit more. Love what you got, but we have to have a sense of space. add a little bit more description. The thing that I think writers, and I'm sure the same goes for any creative types, painters, filmmakers, the things that you don't like, and like for me personally, and writers in particular, what we don't like reading, we don't like writing. And so I'm always battling myself, with not taking an entire page to describe wallpaper.
Right.
And that's something that, I just can't put up with from anybody. I don't care what their name is. And they've done it many times. And you go, and then you go back to their earlier work, and it's so much better,
Yeah.
And, but yeah, for me, it's usually just sense of space, bit more description to let us know, where we're at, where we're moving, but so far, it's, the concept, has made it, sometimes, obviously getting them fully fledged, but I'll do both. I always listen to my beta readers. I don't second guess it. I trust them. And if they say this sentence doesn't work, then I'm going to rework it. The same goes for, final edits with the press. I work with the amazing writer, author, and editor, Kate Jones, who owns the Bram Stoker award-winning press Omnium Gatherum, on my first novella, Cracked Sky, which came out just a few years ago. And, it was a great experience working with her. And it's a collaboration, really, with the press and the writer. And, when I was working with Monique on Hallow Heart and final edits, everything that they caught, I fixed. There was never any, no, you just don't get what I'm doing. Because I threw my ego out of this when I was, in middle school. Mm-hmm. And I don't let that get into everything. I take my work seriously, but I don't take myself seriously. And I think not having an ego involved in this really helps, not only the creative process and the creation of it, but your quality of life, your mental health. There was a writer who committed suicide a few years ago because of a rejection.
Right.
So, your ego can really mess your life up. So I got that out of the way a long, long, long time ago.
Sorry to cut you off there, but that is actually huge advice. No matter what your medium is, just life in general. If you're a teacher or anything, you have to be able to check your ego so you can just do your best without having to dwell so much on people's opinions.
Well, yeah, and the weird thing is I love telling this story. It's really short. So I had a beta reader, and he was really, really good, and I still use him. And he had this favorite writer, and he thought this writer was God's gift to literature. And I sent him a short story for a beta read. He got it back to me. He had some awesome, notes and what needed to be fixed. And so I wrote him back and I said, hey, man, I need to know where I'm at with this story. Is this better than the stuff I've written before? Because you've been beta reading for me forever. And if it's not, I'll delete it. I'll start from scratch. I'll write something new. And he got back to me and he said, I don't understand any of your fiction. None of it makes sense. And I don't understand how you even get published.
Jeez.
And I appreciated his honesty. And that's why I keep him on board. So I decided to conduct an experiment. So I took the first 3 chapters of Cracked Sky, my first horror novella, and it was pretty rough. And all I did was change the name from my name to his favorite writer's name. And I said, hey, man, working at this press, we got this new novella from your favorite writer. Don't tell anybody. Don't share it. I know you love this writer, so here's the first few chapters. I sent him that. He got back to me. He goes, "Oh, this is his best work. This is his best work. I have to read more." So for writers out there and readers out there, and I've conducted this experiment on multiple people, even editors of presses, there's bias, big bias. And I think the biggest problem we face as an up-and-coming writer is that alone right there. That's the toughest thing that you're ever going to face. And you just have to make peace with it. You have to be okay with that. And you have to keep writing, because there's so many things that can get in the way of the creative process. So unless you're writing a short story for a themed anthology, bring nothing with you. Don't think about the business end of this. Don't think about how, there's only 3 places that publish short fiction and horror in the small presses nowadays. Don't think about that. Don't bring anything with you to the blank page. It's like Joe R. Lansdale said, just let your hair down. Shut the world out. And, it's like in that scene in Empire Strikes Back where Luke is on Dagobah and he's talking to Yoda, and Yoda says, he points into the jungle there, and he goes, "That place is really strong with the dark side of the Force. Go in there." And Luke grabs his lightsaber. He goes, No, don't take that. Only bring with you what you need. And because he brings a lightsaber, I'm really being a nerd here. No, he sees what he sees.
Right.
And, I've done DMT, I've worked with shamans, psilocybin mushrooms, combo to improve myself, I dealt with depression for about 1.5 years, and I chose the plant medicine route. And, it's very, very, very much like that. It also really helps creatively as well.
Yeah. With this world that you have created, without giving any spoilers away, and if you say you can't answer it because it's going to give spoilers away, I completely understand. Is this like a world that you as an author see yourself returning to at some point?
I doubt that. I'm not one for sequels or series or anything like that. What I like to do with a project is start it, rock it, thanks to my beta readers. And if it passes the mustard, and if, the good people at Crystal Lake accept it, then you're like, okay, good. Okay, that's all good signs. I'm done.
Okay.
And, I think, readers get that feeling too, because I've heard a lot of feedback with my short fiction, with Cracked Sky and with Hallow Heart, that, yep, it's pretty much done. I mean, now could I go back? Could I go back there? Sure, definitely. I mean, I could definitely, write a short story based on one of those characters that, takes place before Hallow Heart takes place. Maybe the architect, and, drill into him, have him being the main character for a turn. And I just may do that, who knows, to help support the novella. But if it's not good, then I'm just not going to put it out there, So wish me luck.
No, and we absolutely do. And tell everybody it's coming out in like another week, right?
November 29th. Yeah, the pre-order's up right now for the Kindle. You can go to www.beneadsfiction.com, and the pre-order link is there for the Kindle. In about a week, or actually in 3 days, 3 days maximum, the pre-order for the paperback will go live, and it will be released on November 29th, and I can't wait, man. I really cannot wait, because I'm really, really happy with this one, and I really hope, that everyone that does buy it, they sincerely enjoy it. I really, really do. And, so hopefully, this will definitely, please people. That's really, at the end of the day, when you're writing, and you're drafting, and you're in final edits, it's your world, it's your story. But after all that's done and it's about to be published, I'm always the one to sit back and go, God, that sucks. Everyone's going to hate it. Everyone's going to hate it, because my ego's out of it. But I sincerely do hope people enjoy it. I mean, I really do. We put a lot of, Team Crystal Lake put a lot of love into this. And, so yeah, man, we're, the enthusiasm right now is really big. And, and again, thanks to Ben Baldwin for the cover. That really stoked it, started the fires, if you will. Once we started posting excerpts, people were like, oh, wow. So, yeah, so far so good. And, but yeah, I'm always on the lookout for those 1-star reviews where it says, 1-star review, I don't like reading horror. And that's the review. It's happened to, a lot of horror writer friends of mine. I know that's going to come, but again, if your ego's out of it, then you can navigate this and be all right with it, laugh at it. I mean, the world is very Monty Python-esque. And if you can laugh at the absurdity of things and just move on, then, the better your mental health is going to be. And the happier you are, the more fiction you can turn out. So, that's really what it's all about,
Well, right on, man. I definitely appreciate you coming on and look forward to checking out Hallow Heart. You heard him, Crystal Lake Publishing, BenEadsFiction.com, Kindle edition or paperback. Check it out on the 29th, and we will have to do it again sometime, man.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jimmy. And if you don't mind, just for a little bit here, have you heard of the Crystal Lake Publishing Mentorship Program?
I have not.
Oh, well, let me just take just a few minutes there.
Sure.
So you can go to crystallakepub.com, the publishers of Hallow Heart and many other things, and you can sign up to be mentored by Joe Maynard. He is the CEO of Crystal Lake Publishing. He's amazing. You can work with Kenneth W. Kane. He's not only one hell of a writer. I mean, my God, Read a Season in Hell. Crystal Lake Publishing published that. You could put Stephen King's name on it and people would believe it. He's amazing. You can get mentored by him. We got Frank Cernick, who's really, really good. We also have Stephanie. I'm going to murder her last name, and I apologize, Stephanie M. White-Tovics. She's got some editing services up there. And I'm also a mentor there as well. Feel free to, go there, check that out. It's under Author Central. And, we're also going to be giving away a lot of prizes. I've got a signed and limited edition of Josh Mellerman's Bird Box, a signed edition of Stephen King's Cujo, first edition. Yep, signed by Stephen King. These are all going to be part of the giveaways. I've got some Funko Pop horror pops that are going to be part of the giveaway as well, and of course some signed copies of the book. So just keep your ears tuned to BenEadsFiction.com if you sign up for the newsletter, and if you retweet and post and share all these things, that's how you're going to win these prizes. And just so everyone knows, a signed first edition of Cujo by Stephen King in mint condition is worth over $500. So there you go.
Yeah, no excuse not to go check that stuff out. That sounds awesome, man. And all those.
See how I'm bribing everybody?
Well, no, I was just gonna say it was pretty cool that you're doing the mentorship thing. All those names you mentioned, I think they've all been on the show. So those are all really cool people over there at Crystal Lake, and this new program sounds. If you are a aspiring writer, it definitely sounds like it's worth your time to stop by the website and check out all the details of that what you guys are offering. And like I said, we will count down to the 29th, and we will definitely be sharing some love as this thing is around the corner once it arrives, man. Congratulations again.
Well, thank you so much, Jimmy, and thank you so much for the kind words and for the interview and having me on, man. You are one cool cat, man. I deeply appreciate it.
Thanks. So there you go, man. Hope you enjoyed that talk with Ben. I hope you check out his book here in just a little over a week and a half away from the debut of Hallow Heart on all formats. You can get it on Kindle and you can get it on paperback. Pre-sales are live now. You can go to beneadsfiction.com, Crystal Lake Publishing. You're going to want to read it, man. It's cool what he's done. So, next week we will wrap our Sinister Creature Con coverage with that panel that I conducted with Pinhead himself, Doug Bradley. That'll be a cool talk. Then we will have, but later on, before we get to next Horrific Podcast, we will have a Nerdageddon podcast on the not so scary side of things on this channel. My wife and I, we went, guess where? I know you're going to be surprised. Not really. We went back to Disney for their Christmas stuff. It was a lot of fun. So we're going to be talking about the holidays at the parks, and we're going to be talking about Disney Plus, which has just wrecked me in the last 2 weeks. Like, I love Disney Plus. The Mandalorian, I'll save it for the Nerdageddon show, but spoiler alert, I think it's the best thing that they've done since Disney bought Lucasfilm. Anyway, man, thank you for listening. Get Ben's book, Hallow Heart, when it comes out next week. Stay tuned for more this week. And next week, Doug Bradley on the show. Stay spooky. I know it's hard with all this cheer around, but stay spooky, man. Nightmare Before Christmas. I got my black Christmas tree up in our Haunted Mansion room right now. So stay spooky, even during the holidays. Thank you for listening. Have a good one, everybody.